They say the second trimester is supposed to be easier. People talk about that magical relief after the first 3 months when the nausea fades. The appetite comes back, and the mother finally has a little energy again. But for my wife Lan, that just never happened. Every day she fought waves of nausea. Most food made her stomach twist before she could even take a bite. A bowl of chicken broth, maybe a milkshake if she was lucky, that was all she could handle. The smell of cooking oil or anything fried would send her running to the bathroom, pale and trembling. Our little house, usually tidy and bright, slowly became a place that reflected her struggles. Dishes piled up in the sink. Grocery bags stayed unpacked on the counter. Trash bags sat in the corner longer than they should have. Used tissues scattered across the coffee table. I realized quickly that if I didn't stay on top of everything, the house would slip into chaos in just a day or two. My mornings started before the sun. I'd get up around 5:30, make a little oatmeal or plain soup for Lan, and do my best not to let the smell spread through the house. Then I'd clean up what I could before racing to work. And even when I was at work, my mind wasn't really there. I kept checking my phone, half worried she'd faint, or that she'd need me and I wouldn't be there. Lan never complained. She'd squeeze my hand, smile weakly, and whisper, "Don't worry, I can handle it." But I could see the toll it was taking. Her steps were slow and unsteady. Her skin had lost its color. Her eyes had dark circles that seemed permanent. Even when she rested on the couch, her whole body looked tense, like she couldn't escape the storm inside her. I love her, and I don't resent caring for her. But the truth is, my body was wearing down too. My back ached from cleaning, my eyes burned from lack of sleep. And sometimes, while scrubbing dishes or folding laundry at midnight, a selfish thought slipped in. What if I just had one day to rest? One day not to worry? Then guilt would slam into me, and I'd shove the thought away. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was my best friend from college. He was planning a 3-day trip out to the lake, some hiking, some time away from the city. "Come with us," he said. "You need the break." I stared at the message for a long time. The idea of fresh air, laughter, and not worrying for just a moment tugged at me. But then I pictured Lan, curled up on the couch, and shame filled my chest. That night, while tucking a blanket around her, I mentioned it almost as a joke. "Min invited me on a trip, but if I go, you'll probably hate me forever." I expected her to frown, to wave it off. Instead, she looked at me with tired eyes and said softly, "You should go. You need a break. If we can find someone to stay with me, you should go." Her words floored me. She could barely keep food down, and she was still thinking about me. I kissed her forehead, overwhelmed by love and guilt all at once. That was when I started considering who might come help. Hiring someone didn't feel rightly and shy with strangers, especially now. The only person I could think of was my mum now. My mum and I. We have history. She's tough, sharp-tongued, not the kind of woman who coddles anyone. Growing up under her roof meant rules, discipline, and very little softness. Since I moved out, we've kept a polite distance. We call sometimes, but we don't talk about feelings. Still, she's my mum, and in this situation, she felt like the only option. I called her one evening. Her voice on the phone was as clipped as ever. "What's going on?" I explained Lan was struggling. I needed to be gone for 3 days. Would she please come by? Cook a little, help around the house, just check in on her. There was a pause. Then she said, "All right." I'll do it. No warmth, no enthusiasm. But I took it as a yes. Relief washed over me, and I thanked her over and over, even promising to take her to her favorite restaurant when I got back. That night, for the first time in months, I let myself imagine breathing easy again. Just 3 days. 3 days to recharge, to come back stronger for Lan. I lay beside her, watching her chest rise and fall as she slept. Her words echoed in my head. You should go, sometimes. Love isn't just about sacrifice. It's about letting the person you love find their balance too. What I didn't realize, though, was that this small decision would set off a chain of conflicts far bigger than I ever expected. The morning I left home, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the blinds, but the atmosphere in our living room was heavy. Lan lay curled up on the sofa, her hair falling over the pillow, her face so pale it made my chest ache. She looked up at me with eyes that held both worry and tenderness. You should go, Lan whispered, her voice raspy. Don't worry. I'll be fine. I froze, wanting to put my suitcase down immediately. But Lan reached for my hand, weak but firm. You need rest too. If your mum agreed to come help, then let yourself breathe a little. I nodded, though guilt swelled in me. I kissed her forehead, leaving a small promise behind. I'll call often. If anything feels wrong, you tell me right away. Before leaving, I tried to prepare as much as possible. A few jars of soup I had made the night before sat in the fridge. Ginger tea bags were neatly lined up on the counter. Extra pillows were placed on the sofa to ease her aches. I even wrote a list of small tasks my mum could do. Open the windows for fresh air, wash the dishes, make Lan a glass of milk if she could manage it. I hoped she would read it and understand how crucial those little things were. As I stepped out the door, Lan gave me a faint smile, but I could see how exhausted that smile truly was. I wanted to turn back, abandon the trip, yet I forced myself to keep moving, dragging my suitcase down the steps, carrying my conflict inside. The highway stretched out under clear skies. The weather had turned bright after days of rain, almost as if nature itself urged me to let go of my worries. I rolled down the window, took a breath of cool air, but the image of Lan on the sofa lingered in my mind. When I reached the cabin by the lake, Min was already waiting outside. He raised a beer can, grinning wide like we were back in college. Finally, you made it. The wooden cabin smelled faintly of pine and smoke. Inside, friends had already gathered, music thumping from a Bluetooth speaker, laughter filling the air. I suddenly realized how long it had been since I'd been in a space that existed only for carefree joy. No clattering dishes, no sound of Lan's sharp breathing from nausea. Just relief, if only for a moment. That first evening, we sat around a fire outside. Flames crackled, casting light across faces glowing with excitement. Someone told a story about getting lost on a hiking trip, and everyone laughed hard. I laughed too, but peace didn't come. In my mind, I kept picturing Lan. Was she able to rest? Had she eaten anything at all? I checked my phone. No messages. I felt both relieved and uneasy. No news could mean everything was fine, or that she didn't want to bother me. I chose to believe the first option, forcing myself to lie back and look at the stars. The next morning, Min dragged us out for a hike. The trail wound through the forest, then opened up to a view of the lake shimmering under the sun. Breathing in the crisp air, I felt some release, at least in my body. You needed this for a long time, Min said, clapping me on the shoulder. I laughed, admitting he was right. But even as I walked surrounded by nature, my thoughts kept circling back home. I remembered the soups, the ginger tea, the list I had written. I worried whether Mum had even looked at it, or if she just set down a casserole and left. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled out my phone and called Lan. The phone rang for a long time before she answered. Her voice was thin. "Hello, how's the trip?" "It's good. How are you?" A pause. "I'm okay. Just tired." Something in her tone made my chest tighten. I pressed. "Did Mum come by?" Another pause, then a short reply. "Yes, she brought food." I wanted to ask more, but Lan said she needed to rest and hung up. I stared at the blank screen for a long while. Min came over, asking if everything was okay. I shook my head, forcing a smile. "She's fine." But deep down, I knew something wasn't. That night, while everyone played cards, I sat quietly. The laughter and music around me felt distant. In my mind, I saw Lan sitting alone in the living room, pushing away a cold casserole she couldn't stomach. The image haunted me, making every minute heavy. On the third day, the trip was supposed to feel freeing. Instead, my mind was already home. Even sitting in the cabin, I felt as if I was standing in our living room, watching Lan fight exhaustion. I thought of the little details I'd asked my mum to do, and I knew she had likely brushed them off. Packing up my bag, my heartbeat quickened. I had laughed, hiked, and shared beers. But every bit of enjoyment only deepened the guilt. More than anything, I longed to return, and as I drove back toward the city, the feeling only grew stronger, like a stone pressing down in my chest. I wondered, what would I see when I opened our door? Would Lan be completely worn out? Would the house be a mess? And my mother? Had she truly helped, or had she only left behind casseroles Lan couldn't eat? The road home stretched endlessly, and I realized this was only the beginning of the storm to come. The bus kept rolling, tires humming against the wet asphalt like a heartbeat that refused to fade. I sat by the window, my head leaning against the cold glass, watching endless fields and scattered woods flash past like frames from a film. The scenery kept shifting, but inside me everything stayed heavy, shadowed, as if some dark weight refused to let go at first. There had been chatter on the bus, people calling home. A couple of college kids sharing jokes, even a group in the back playing music softly. But one by one, the voices died down. Some fell asleep in crooked postures, some just stared blankly into the dark. Slowly, silence swallowed the bus. Only the low hum of the engine and the steady rhythm of breathing remained. And in that silence, my thoughts grew louder. Lan's face kept appearing in my mind, pale, exhausted, her eyes ringed with dark circles after too many sleepless nights. I remembered the nights she curled up beside me, thinking I was asleep, while muffled sobs slipped into the pillow. I heard every broken breath, every trembling gasp, but most of the time I lay frozen, paralyzed by helplessness. Once or twice, I reached for her hand in the dark, but mostly I stayed still, a coward hiding behind silence. That same silence now followed me, echoing in the darkness like the bus itself, barreling into the night without a clear destination. I wondered if this trip of mine was nothing more than an escape, if this distance would harden into something worse, a fracture, a canyon between me and Lan that I might never cross again. The thought squeezed my chest until even breathing felt like work. The man sitting across from me shifted, then looked up, He was maybe 50, his face lined and weathered, but his eyes carried a strange commas, if he had weathered too many storms to be unsettled now. He gave a faint smile. "First time traveling this far?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, pretty much." He rested one hand on his knee, his voice rough but deliberate. "The road is long. Some folks find answers on it. Others only find louder questions." The words cut through me like a blade. I had no reply. He leaned back and closed his eyes again, leaving me drowning in my own thoughts. The bus pulled into a rest stop, a lonely strip of fluorescent light against the dark. Passengers shuffled out, some grabbing coffee, others making hurried phone calls. I stayed in my seat, my stomach clenched, not with hunger but with worry I couldn't shake. Through the glass, I saw the driver standing outside, cigarette smoke curling upward and fading into the night. The sight pulled me back to the night before, to Lan's voice, soft and pleading. "Go, if you must. But don't go too far, and don't stay too long." And here I was already too far, already gone too long. Silence, once a comfort now, pressed on me like a warning, a whisper of something looming just beyond reach. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to break, and I would be powerless to stop it. All I could do was sit still as the bus pushed forward, carrying me away from the one place I should have been. That night I couldn't sleep. The soft snore of the man across the aisle, the creak of seats, the first drops of rain drumming against the roof together, they formed a bleak kind of lullaby. I stared into the dark, unraveling in my own thoughts, dissolving into a mix of longing and fear. Longing for Lan, feared that when I came back, there might be nothing left waiting for me. And somewhere in that silence, I realized it wasn't just an empty space between two people. Silence could grow teeth. It could become the knife that severed the final thread holding two lives together. Lan sat propped up against the headboard, her eyes fixed on the fading sunlight pouring through the window. The house felt smaller these days, less like a home, more like a box pressing down on her from all sides. Every breath felt like work. She wanted to scream, to run out into the fresh air, to escape the constant smell of food that turned her stomach upside down. But all it took was a few steps across the room, and the nausea slammed back like a wave, forcing her to collapse on the couch again. Trembling Huy walked in with a broom in his hand, sweat beading on his forehead. He had just finished scrubbing down the sink, a task that had been waiting for days. He looked at his wife, pale, frail, exhausted, and his chest tightened. He had thought asking his mother to stay for 3 days was the perfect solution. He thought Lan would be cared for while he got a small break, and he could return refreshed, ready to give her more of himself. But standing there now, staring at the wreck the house had become, he realized how badly he had miscalculated. "How are you feeling?" he asked gently, his voice heavy with worry. Lan's eyes were glassy from lack of sleep. "The same as always, tired. I don't want to eat anything." He sat beside her and took her hand. Her fingers were cold and thin, bones showing where weight had fallen away. He forced a smile, though his lips trembled. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never should have left. I thought Mum would help. I thought it'd be easier for you." Lan didn't answer. She wasn't angry with him, at least, not directly. But deep inside, something had cracked. Not between her and we, but between her and the rest of his family. The trust she'd tried to build, the hope she'd carried that they would be her safety net, had shattered in 3 short days. She remembered it clearly, every afternoon. His mother walked in, set down a casserole, and left almost as quickly as she came. No real conversation. No gentle touch or encouragement. Just heavy food that made Lan gag. Food she couldn't eat. Then the clink of the trash lid as she threw it away hours later. The kitchen stayed messy. The living room stayed cluttered. It was as if his mother had shown up simply to check a box, to say, "See, I did my part." Lan bit her lip and held back tears. Maybe she'd been naive to expect more. Maybe she'd fooled herself into thinking family meant more than just obligation. That night, when Lan finally drifted into a shallow sleep, we sat in the living room alone. The sink was empty now, but the trash still reeked of wasted casserole. Blankets and pillows were strewn across the couch where Lan had been dozing all day. Every corner of the house screamed chaos. He stared at the mess, at the evidence of neglect, and something in him snapped. He picked up his phone. His thumb hovered over his mother's name. His heart pounded. Half of him wanted to let it go. The other half burned with anger so sharp he could hardly breathe. The anger won. He pressed call. The line rang. Finally, her voice answered, flat and unbothered. "Hello." Why are you calling this late?" He forced his voice steady. "Mum, I just got back. I need to know. What exactly did you do these last 3 days?" There was a pause, then a dismissive laugh. "What do you mean?" "I brought food every day. I even took out the trash. What else were you expecting, I'm not your maid." His hand clenched around the phone. "You knew Lan couldn't eat heavy food. You saw the house falling apart. She needed help, real help. Not just food she couldn't touch, and a quick visit." Her voice sharpened instantly. "Oh, so now I'm supposed to babysit your wife. She's a grown woman. She's pregnant, not disabled. Other women work on their feet until the day they give birth, and your wife can't even manage the house. You've spoiled her, that's the problem." The fury boiled over. We shot up from the couch, pacing. "You don't understand. She's not like other women right now. She's sick. The doctor warned us. She can't even keep water down without throwing up. And instead of helping, you acted like she was an inconvenience. If you didn't want to do it, you should have said so. I would have stayed home. I would never have left her like this." His mother snapped back. "I did help. I cooked. I cleaned the trash. What more do you want from me? You and your wife need to grow up and stop leaning on me for everything." Wee's voice shook, his chest heaving. "Mum, listen to yourself. All Lan needed was someone to sit with her, someone to care enough to ask if she was okay. Instead, you brought food she couldn't eat and walked out the door. Do you know what that felt like to her, to me?" For a moment, silence hung heavy on the line. Then came his mother's bitter laugh. "You're blaming me now, after everything I've done for you all these years. I broke my back raising you, and now you scold me because your wife is too weak to handle being pregnant. Don't you dare lecture me, His voice cracked as he shouted back. "This isn't about me. This is about Lan. She deserves compassion. She deserves a family who cares. But you didn't care. You made her feel like a burden. Do you know how much that hurt her? Enough." She barked. "If you think I owe your wife something, you're wrong. I don't owe her anything. I don't owe you anything. You want to play house, then take responsibility. Don't drag me into it. And with that, the line went dead. Huy stood frozen, phone pressed to his ear, listening to the empty click of disconnection. His body trembled. Rage, grief, disappointment all tangled into a knot he couldn't untie. When he turned back toward the bedroom, he saw Lan awake, her face pale in the dim light. She had heard everything. I heard it all, she whispered, voice fragile. His throat tightened. He sat on the bed beside her, guilt pouring out of him. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have had to, she shook her head, her hand reaching for his. Don't apologize. I needed to know. At least now. Now I understand. We can't count on anyone but ourselves. Her words broke him more than his mother's had. He pulled her into his arms, his chest aching. You're right. It's just us. But I promise, I'll never leave you to face this alone again. The two of them clung to each other, the quiet hum of the night wrapping around them. Outside, the moon hung low, pale and distant. Inside, the weight of betrayal pressed down, leaving a wound that might never fully heal. But in that moment, pressed close together, they found the only thing that mattered. They still had each other. And sometimes, that had to be enough. After that night's argument, the house fell into a silence that felt heavy, almost suffocating. It wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet that lets you rest, it was the kind that lingers in the air, carrying the weight of words that can't be taken back. Lan didn't bring up her mother-in-law again. But every time we looked at her lying on the couch, staring blankly at the ceiling, he knew her mind was still circling the same thoughts. The next morning, before the sun was even up, we slipped out of bed. He crept into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and was met with rows of neatly packed casseroles, his mother's casseroles. The smell of cream and cheese hit him like a wall. His stomach turned. One by one, he stacked them into a garbage bag, tied it up, and carried it all the way to the outside bin dot. Back in the kitchen, he grabbed a small pot, rinsed it out, and started on something simple, a thin porridge with rice and carrots. He remembered the doctor's advice, bland food, light on the stomach. When the steam rose and the scent of simmering rice filled the kitchen, he felt something loosen inside him. For once, he wasn't helpless. He was doing something. When he brought the bowl into the bedroom, Lan was sitting up, her hair tangled from sleep. We set the tray down, offering a tentative smile. I tried cooking for you. Don't know if it'll be any good. Lan looked at the steaming porridge. Her expression softened. I'll try, she said. She lifted the spoon, took a small bite, and swallowed carefully. The taste was plain, almost flavorless, but it didn't send her stomach rolling. She looked up at him, eyes glistening. I can keep it down. We smiled, the tension in his shoulders easing for the first time in days. He sat next to her, watching as she took spoonful after spoonful. In that quiet moment, they both felt a flicker of light in the dark, but light wasn't enough to erase the shadows. In the days that followed, his mother never called. She didn't stop by. The house belonged solely to the two of them. Lan felt torn, relieved not to face her mother-in-law's coldness, yet lonelier than ever. She had no family nearby, few friends in the city. The silence of the house pressed on her like a weight at night. After she finally drifted off, we sat at the small desk with his laptop, crunching numbers. Savings, thin. Upcoming bills, thick. Hospital costs, medicine, baby supplies. His chest tightened as he stared at the spreadsheet. He rubbed his face with both hands, trying to breathe. Lan stirred, saw him hunched over, shoulders trembling. She slipped out of bed and walked to him, wrapping her arms around his back. "Don't carry it all alone," she whispered. He caught her hands, pressing them tightly against his chest. His voice cracked. "I'm scared, Lan. What if I can't take care of you? Of the baby?" She laid her cheek against his shoulder. "Then we'll take care of each other." That night, they sat in silence again. But it was a different silence, one made of trust, not distance. A few mornings later, Lan suggested something unexpected. Maybe we should ask the neighborhood women's group. Remember, they mentioned helping new mums. We hesitated. Growing up, his family had always handled things privately. Reaching out to strangers felt wrong. But he saw the hope in Lan's face, and he nodded. "Okay, I'll ask around." Sure enough, a few days later, their neighbor Han knocked on the door. She carried a bag filled with fresh vegetables and herbal teas for nausea. She stayed a while, chatting with Lan, sharing her own stories of morning sickness and childbirth. Her laughter filled the kitchen, light and genuine. Lan listened, smiling in a way we hadn't seen in weeks. Watching her shoulders relax, hearing her laugh along it, was like air rushing into a suffocating room. We stood quietly in the doorway, gratitude swelling inside him. Sometimes family wasn't blood. Sometimes it was kindness from the people next door. Still, the wound left by his mother lingered. One night, Lan woke shaking from a dream, his mother standing at their door, a casserole dish in hand, eyes cold as stone. She clutched Wee tightly, her body trembling. He held her, whispering reassurance, but he knew the scar was still raw. The silence stretched into weeks. His mother never reached out. He didn't call either. The distance hardened, turning into an invisible wall. Yet within their small home, life reshaped itself. The bubbling of porridge on the stove, the soft chatter of neighbors who stopped by, the rhythm of two people clinging to each other against the storm. Then came a morning at the clinic. The air outside was crisp, autumn brushing its chill against their cheeks as they walked hand in hand. In the exam room, the doctor switched on the monitor. A steady thump-thump filled the space the baby's heart beat. Strong, certain, alive. Lan burst into tears. We squeezed her hand until his knuckles whitened, his own eyes wet. In that moment, the silence, the hurt, the rejection, they all faded. Because somewhere inside that fragile sound was proof. Their child was growing, pushing forward, refusing to give up, and so would they. The morning after hearing their baby's heartbeat, we and Lan walked out of the clinic with tears still clinging to their faces. That sound had given them strength, a reminder that life was growing inside her. But it also reminded them that the path ahead wouldn't be simple. Behind their small victories lingered a wound neither of them could ignore. The widening rift between Wee and his mother. In the days that followed, Lan seemed a little better. The nausea was still there, the fatigue still heavy, but she could finally keep down bowls of plain rice porridge or the light vegetable soups we carefully prepared. Their modest kitchen became the heart of their love story pot steaming. Soft laughter, the rhythm of a husband refusing to give up on his wife. Yet, even in that warmth, a gap remained. We didn't call his mum anymore. Every time he thought of her, bitterness rose like bile. He couldn't shake the image of Lan, pale and trembling, while his mum brushed it all off with words about how women just had to toughen up. Lan, though, wasn't angry, just sad. She longed for the kind of warmth from her mother-in-law that she saw in her neighbors' families. Sometimes, Late at night, she whispered. Maybe you should call her. She's still your mother. But all we could do was squeeze her hand and let out a heavy sigh. One Saturday night, the silence broke. We were scrubbing dishes when his phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a single word, Mum. His stomach tightened. For a moment, he just stared, frozen, before finally answering. Son. Her voice came, scratchy but steady. I've been thinking about what happened. We said nothing. Images flashed through his mind. Len curled up in bed, fighting nausea alone while his mom left casseroles she couldn't eat. I know you're upset, she continued. But you've got to understand. Back when I was pregnant with you, your father worked long hours, and I had to manage on my own. I didn't expect anyone to hold my hand. That's just how it was. I worry you're spoiling your wife too much. Her words hit Wee like a slap. His voice trembled as he answered, Times are different now, Mum. And Lan isn't just tired, she's sick. The doctor warned us about her blood pressure. She needs real help. I asked you because I thought I could trust you. The line went quiet. After a long pause, his mum sighed. Maybe I handled it wrong. But when you accused me of being lazy, like I didn't care, that cut deep. It cut deeper watching my wife cry because she felt abandoned. We snapped, his throat tight. I needed you. She needed you. And you left us alone. The call ended without resolution. Not quite a fight, but nowhere near forgiveness. Just more distance that hardened into silence. Lan began leaning more on the neighborhood women's group. They brought fresh vegetables, shared herbal teas that eased her nausea, and told funny stories about their own pregnancies. Their laughter filled the small apartment, and for the first time in weeks, Lan looked lighter, her smile returning in pieces. We watched from the doorway, both grateful and conflicted. It warmed him to see her cared for, but a part of him resented that strangers showed up when his own mother didn't. One crisp autumn afternoon, as golden leaves scattered across the sidewalk, we sat on the porch, lost in thought. He remembered being a boy, burning with fever, and his mum spooning hot broth into his mouth, gently wiping his forehead. That version of Hertha, one who once nursed him through every illness, seemed like a ghost compared to the woman, who now stood so far away. Had she changed? Or was he only now seeing who she truly was? Then came the day that ripped the wound wider. Without warning, his mum showed up at their door. Lan answered, startled to see her standing there with a basket of fruit. These will help, she said, setting the basket down. Lan murmured a polite thank you and slipped into the kitchen to make tea. The tension was thick when we stepped into the room. The three of them sat at the table, words heavy in the air until his mum broke the silence. She began. I'm sorry if I upset you, but I still believe your wife should learn to manage more on her own. That's how she builds strength. Lan bit her lip hard, her eyes glistening. We saw her pain, and something inside him snapped. He slammed his cup down, his voice sharp. Mom, this isn't about independence. She's sick. She's carrying my child. The doctor said rest. The doctor said support. Why can't you hear that? The room erupted, raised voices, raw anger, years of unspoken frustration spilling out. Lan sat in silence, tears sliding down her cheeks, feeling caught between them, feeling invisible. Finally, his mom rose, her face cold. If you think I'm useless, then fine. I won't interfere anymore. The door slammed behind her, leaving the air heavy and cracked. That night, we held Lan in his arms while she sobbed. "I never wanted this, she whispered. "I just wanted her to care. Even a little." His chest ached. He kissed her hair, whispering fiercely, "No matter what happens, I'll choose you, always. You and our baby." In the quiet darkness, they clung to each other. Two people standing on the edge of a cliff with nothing but their grip to keep them from falling. The family bond had splintered. But in those broken pieces, we and Lan found something unshakable. The will to hold on tighter, to fight harder, to build a new family of their own. After the night Wee's mother walked out, the little house he shared with Lan was wrapped in a heavy silence. In the days that followed, Lan tried to keep herself calm, not wanting her emotions to weigh on the baby. But each time she passed the fruit basket her mother-in-law had left behind, she felt her chest tighten. The apples and oranges seemed to carry a message of distance, of a gap too wide to bridge. Wee threw himself into work. Besides his full-time job, he picked up extra shifts to cover hospital bills, baby supplies, and all the unexpected expenses piling up. Late at night, when Lan was asleep, he sat at the kitchen table staring at spreadsheets on his laptop. Every sigh that escaped him, he tried to smother. If he had to, he would step out onto the porch to breathe before coming back inside. Lan noticed it all. One night, her voice cut softly through the quiet. "Wee, don't hide it from me. I can see how hard you're pushing yourself." He froze, turning toward her. She lay on her side, her eyes tired but steady. He took her hand gently. "I'm fine. I just want everything to be ready for you and the baby. I don't want you to worry." She shook her head. "We're partners. That means we share the weight. Watching you carry it alone, that hurts more than anything." Her words hit him harder than any criticism. He realized he had been so focused on shielding her that he had forgotten the real strength they had always relied on, facing life together. One morning, Lan's phone rang. It was her parents, calling from their village miles away. They had heard bits and pieces about her difficult pregnancy, and though they longed to be at her side, they couldn't leave their farm. Her mother's voice cracked through the line. "You've already been through so much. Lan, if only we lived closer, I'd be there in a heartbeat." Lan broke down, pouring out everything she had been holding back. On the other end, her mother choked up, "Then lean on we. That's what marriage is. Forget about outsiders, just keep each other strong." Those words stayed with Lan, even if her mother-in-law kept her distance, even if relatives whispered behind their backs. As long as we was beside her, she believed she could endure. But storms didn't stop coming. One evening, just as we returned home from work, a cousin of his showed up at their door. She came bearing news of what people were saying in the family, that we was weak, that Lan was fragile, that the young couple didn't know how to stand on their own. "Your mum feels humiliated," the cousin said pointedly, her eyes darting toward Lan. "People are saying you embarrassed her raising your voice in front of your wife. To outsiders, that looks disrespectful." The words cut deep. Lan lowered her head, fighting back tears. Wee's face flushed with anger, his fists tightening at his sides. His voice came out firm. "Our marriage is our business. If people don't understand, they don't get to judge." The cousin faltered, then left with a shake of her head. Lan quietly started gathering dishes in the kitchen. We walked over, wrapped his arms around her from behind, and whispered, "Don't listen to them. All I need is for you to believe in me." She nodded, her tears soaking into his shirt. By the 6th month, Lan's body grew heavier, each step slower. We learned to take over everything: cooking, cleaning, laundry, even massaging her swollen legs each night. At first he fumbled, spilling porridge on the stove, nearly burning the rice. But with time, he became surprisingly good at it. The all-around husband Lan never expected, sometimes, as she watched him hustling in the kitchen, sweat dripping from his brow while he stirred a pot with absolute focus. She couldn't help but smile through her exhaustion. "I'm the lucky one," she murmured, turning. He flashed her a tired but genuine grin. "No, Lan, I'm the lucky one." The struggles drew them closer, yet the rift with Wee's mother only widened. No calls, no visits. Not even a message to ask how Lan or the baby were doing. Just silence, cold, unyielding silence. More than once, Lan lay awake, wondering, when the baby arrives, will she come to hold her grandchild? Or will she keep turning away? There was no answer, but both Lan and Wee knew one thing for certain: sooner or later, they would have to face that truth. And the day of reckoning was coming faster than they imagined. The 7th month of pregnancy arrived with both anticipation and fear. Lan's belly was now unmistakable, her movements slower, and her exhaustion deeper than before. Nights became restless, filled with aching hips and sudden jolts awake. We tried to help in every way he could, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shield her from the heaviness pressing on her body and heart. One rainy afternoon, as Lan sat curled up on the couch with a blanket over her shoulders, we brought her a cup of warm ginger tea. She accepted it with a tired smile, but he noticed her eyes glistening. "What's wrong?" he asked gently, sitting beside her. Her lips trembled before words escaped. "I keep thinking about the baby coming, and how your mum hasn't been here once. Not a call, not a message. What if our child grows up without knowing their grandmother?" We clenched his jaw, staring at the rain streaking down the window. If she chooses pride over family, that's on her. I won't let her hurt you or our baby. Lan leaned against his shoulder, torn between gratitude for his loyalty and sorrow over the widening gap. Deep inside, she still longed for reconciliation, not just for herself, but for the child she carried. A week later, the silence shattered. Wee's mother called unexpectedly. Her voice was sharp, lacking warmth. "Wee, I heard you've been telling people I abandoned you too. That I don't care. Do you know how humiliating that is for me?" We took a deep breath. "Mum, all I've ever said is the truth. You haven't visited, you haven't helped. Lan is struggling, and I'm doing everything alone." "You're exaggerating," his mother snapped. "When I was pregnant with you, I didn't need anyone pampering me. Women these days are too soft. And you've become weak, letting her control everything." The words sliced through the air. Lan, sitting nearby, overheard every sentence. Tears streamed down her face before she could stop them. Wee's voice rose, trembling with anger. "This isn't about being weak. This is about love. I stand by my wife because she's carrying my child. If you can't understand that, then maybe you really don't know what family means." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then a cold reply, "Fine, if that's how you feel. Don't expect me to be there when the baby comes." The call ended abruptly, leaving Wee's hand shaking around the phone that night. We sat alone in the kitchen long after Lan had fallen asleep. The glow from the small lamp highlighted the deep lines of exhaustion on his face. He thought about all the sacrifices his mother had once made for him, the strength she had shown raising him, But now, that same strength felt like a wall, unyielding, unforgiving. He wanted his mother to be part of this new chapter, to hold her grandchild, to stand beside him the way he had always imagined. But each word she spoke pushed them further apart. When Lan woke up and found him still sitting there, she walked over and touched his shoulder. Don't lose yourself in this fight. We can't control her choices. We can only choose how we live, how we raise our child. Her calmness, even in pain, steadied him. He pulled her into his arms, whispering, "You're right. From now on, my focus is you and our baby. That's all that matters." As the weeks crept toward the due date, the house grew both warmer and lonelier. Warm with the love Wee and Lan poured into preparing for their child, tiny clothes folded neatly in drawers, a crib assembled with care, lullabies softly played in the evenings. Lonely, because the empty space where family should have stood loomed larger than ever. Lan often pressed her palm against her belly, feeling the baby's kicks. She whispered promises to the little one inside. "You'll never feel unloved. Your dad and I will make sure of that." Yet in her heart, she couldn't help but wonder if one day her child would ask, "Where's Grandma? Why doesn't she come?" Wee, too, battled his doubts. Every time he passed the phone, he thought of calling his mom again, to try one last time to mend the broken bridge. But then he'd remember her harsh words and stop himself, afraid of reopening wounds that hadn't yet healed. And so the house remained divided between two forces, love that bound them closer, and silence that threatened to swallow everything else. The breaking point had come and gone, but its echoes lingered, shaping the road ahead in ways neither Wee nor Lan could yet see. By the 8th month, Lan had reached the hardest stretch of her pregnancy. Every step felt like a burden. Her feet swelled, her back ached constantly, and simple tasks like getting up from the couch left her breathless. Nights were restless, filled with cramps and false contractions that stole away her sleep. We tried to hold everything together. He worked extra shifts, did the cooking, cleaned the apartment, and still tried to stay present whenever Lan needed him. Some mornings he left before dawn, but no matter how tired he was, he always came home with groceries and a warm smile, ready to help Lan get comfortable. One night, while folding the tiny newborn clothes they had bought, Lan suddenly burst into tears. We rushed over, alarmed. "What's wrong? Are you hurting?" She shook her head, clutching a baby onesie to her chest. "I just wish your mum was here, even just once, to see how hard we're trying, to see her grandchild's things." Wee's chest tightened. He sat down beside her and pulled her close. There were no easy words. He could only hold her, his own heart heavy with the same grief. The next day, while we was at work, Lan was hit by sudden, sharp pains that left her doubled over on the couch. She broke out in a sweat, gripping her phone with trembling hands. "I can't. It hurts." She managed to whisper when he picked up HUI, dropped everything. He left his office without a word, sprinted into the street, and grabbed a cab home. His heart pounded as he rushed inside and found Lan curled up, eyes squeezed shut. He scooped her into his arms. "Hold on, love. I'm taking you to the hospital right now." Doctors confirmed it was just a false alarm, but they warned that her body was under stress and the risk of preterm labor was high. On the ride home, Lan leaned against his shoulder, drained. "Thank you. I thought I couldn't make it." We kissed her forehead, whispering, "I won't let you go through this alone." not ever. A few days later, their neighbor, Mrs. Meyer, middle-aged woman raising her daughter, alone, knocked on the door. She brought a basket of fresh vegetables and a couple of simple dishes. "I see we rushing off to work all the time. And you're home alone with that big belly," she said kindly. "You to take this. Think of it as a neighbor's care." Lan's eyes welled with tears. That small act of kindness from a near stranger warmed her more than she expected. It also deepened the sting of her mother-in-law's absence. That night, after Lan went to bed, we sat alone on the balcony. The city lights blurred in his vision. He thought of his childhood, when his mother had stayed up through the night whenever he was sick, or when she had worked extra hours to pay for his schooling. The memories clashed painfully with the cold distance she showed now. How did she change so much? He wondered. Or maybe she hasn't changed at all, and I just never saw this side of her. A week later, we reluctantly took Lan to a small family gathering at his aunt's house. He hoped it might be a chance for reconciliation, or at least peace. But the moment they arrived, the whispers started. "She looks so pale. Do you think she'll even be strong enough to care for the baby?" Another relative smirked and said, just loud enough for everyone to hear, "We used to listen to his mother. Now he just follows his wife around. Guess who wears the pants now?" We clenched his jaw, his fists tightening, but he said nothing. Lan lowered her gaze, fighting back tears. On the drive home, she broke down. "I'm sorry. I made things harder for you, didn't I?" We pulled over and took her hands in his. His voice was steady, but his eyes glistened. "You have nothing to apologize for. I should be the one apologizing for not protecting you from their words." She searched his face and saw pain, but also determination. For the first time, she truly felt the depth of his loyalty, not just as her husband, but as her partner in every storm. That same night, Lan's contractions started again, stronger than before. She cried out, gripping Wee's hand until her knuckles turned white. He stayed up with her through every wave, timing her breaths, rubbing her back, whispering reassurances, even as exhaustion etched deep lines across his face at one point. Lan collapsed against him, trembling. "I'm scared. What if I can't make it through the real thing?" We held her tight, his voice hoarse but resolute. "I'll be there. I won't leave your side for a single second. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Lan felt her fear soften just a little. Even in the middle of pain, she knew this bond would carry her through. Still, as she drifted into an uneasy sleep at dawn, one thought lingered in both their minds. The real storm, the day of birth, was coming, and no one knew whether it would heal the fractures in their family or split them open for good. That night, Lan woke up to a sharp, gut-wrenching pain. This time, it wasn't like the others. This pain came in waves, stronger and stronger, crashing through her body. She clutched her stomach, her face pale, sweat dripping down her temples. In a trembling voice, she whispered, We shot up instantly. The sight of his wife curled up in pain nearly broke him. Without hesitation, he grabbed the hospital bag they had packed weeks ago, supported her down the stairs, and called for a ride. Outside, rain fell in a light mist, streetlights glowing dimly against the wet pavement. Inside the car, we held Lan's hand tight, his voice low and steady. "Breathe, honey. Just breathe. We're almost there. We're about to meet our baby." Lan's breaths were ragged, her grip on his hand desperate, as if holding on to him was the only thing keeping her grounded. The hospital was a blur of white lights. hurried footsteps, and the hum of medical machines. Nurses rushed Lan onto a gurney, wheeling her straight into the delivery room. We walked right beside her, refusing to let go of her hand. Every contraction ripped through Lan like fire. She cried out, drenched in sweat, tears streaming down her face. We wiped her forehead, his words spilling out in a constant stream. "You're doing amazing. Just a little longer. I'm right here." At one point, Lan broke down, her voice choked with sobs. "I can't do this anymore. I can't." Wee's throat tightened, but he leaned close, holding her hand like a lifeline. His eyes glistened as he whispered, "Yes, you can. I know you can. You're stronger than you think. Our baby is waiting for you." Those words sparked something inside her. Through the exhaustion, the pain, and the tears, Lan gathered every ounce of strength left in her. And then, in the midst of shouts from the doctor and the chaos around her, the room was filled with the piercing cry of a newborn. The sound cut through the tension, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Lan collapsed back on the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. Tears spilled down Wee's face as well. When the nurse placed the tiny, trembling baby onto Lan's chest, her hands shook as she reached out, touching that fragile skin for the first time. Her heart felt like it was bursting. We bent down, kissed the baby's forehead, and whispered with a shaky smile, "Welcome to the world, little one." The good news spread quickly through the family. Relatives sent congratulations, some even came by the hospital. But Wee's mother never showed, never even called, cradling her baby. Lan looked at Wee and softly said, "I don't need everyone's blessing. As long as I have you and our child, that's enough." We nodded, squeezing her hand tight. As the first light of dawn streamed through the hospital window, the three of them, father, mother, and child, lay together, wrapped in warmth and love. Their own little world, and yet, deep inside Wee's chest, a question lingered. Would his mother ever change? Would she ever come, hold her grandchild, and see what love really meant? Or would the distance between them remain forever? He didn't know. But at that moment, with his wife and baby in his arms, he knew one thing for sure. He finally had everything that mattered.